Let's talk about when I worked at Starbucks. For any story that I tell, I hope that it makes a difference in someone's life, whether it helps you make a decision on something you've been thinking about, or it just helps you to kind of feel like you're not alone in certain situations or with certain companies. I really hope that that's the purpose that sharing this story serves, because I really feel like it's something that a lot of people don't talk enough about, and I feel like we should, because it's wrong to be treated certain kinds of ways. It's wrong to be treated certain kinds of ways, and you should know when enough is enough. You should really, when you know that something's wrong, you should say something, you should do something. And so, anywho's, let's get into it. So, I worked at Starbucks for a total of 3 years, but I was a prior employee and I worked for 6 months, so we'll say like 4 years and some change. And I worked at 6 different stores. Whew, that's a lot. And a few of them were touch and go. Some of them were about 6 months. It was just an on and off because unfortunately I had a lot of moving situations. I will start off by saying that Starbucks is definitely a company that is very immersed. It is very involved in what it does. Starbucks is they're the coffee company, and they do a really good job of really making you aware of that. Your training doesn't just show you how to make drinks or, how to do certain procedures, but it shows you the story. It shows you where their coffee comes from, how they harvest, who they harvest from, what regions their coffee is made. And it's a whole thing. There's a whole development, a whole story. There's reserve coffees, which if you don't know what a reserve coffee is, basically it's a coffee that is harvested in a special lot. And they're one-of-a-kind coffees that really can't be harvested. Usually, at least this is what it was back when I started. There's really special coffees that can only be harvested like once. Or it's like during a certain season. If you know more, correct me on that. But it's like during a certain season. But they're like super special coffees. And I mean, it just goes into so much more detail. There's medium, dark blonde. There's, there's seasonal coffees. There's monthly coffees. I mean, it's cray. So, but if you love coffee, it's just like, it's a dream. So that's the great thing about Starbucks. It's exciting, to get in there and to just see all the different things. There's a culture that is in there, and it really is, and I mean this, if you're in a good store, you're in a good area, you're with the right people, it can be something that really is magical. I feel like I kind of felt a little bit of that, but probably not what they promise you when you see those smiling people with their little cups in the brochure. Or when they show you those startup videos, you get hyped and you're like, oh my god, I want to be that. That's going to be my cafe. And then you start working and you're like, it's nothing like my cafe. It's a good company for people who are in, either you're a student, you're going to school and you're broke, because they do pay for your college. You do have to go through their college though, which is online. So there's the kicker. And so, I mean, it's great for, it being your first job. There's so many life lessons that they teach you. But for my experience, things just didn't work out. And I tried several times. It wasn't like I just, quit. I tried. But anywho's, that aside, so starting with Starbucks was a very fun experience. I had a personal trainer who, I had a little regiment that I went through. It was like a little week process where I sat down with them. I did paperwork. I did, my little booklets. And then I did like little games with them. I did computer work where I answered questions. I took quiz. I took courses. And then I finally got on the floor and I did like actual like I lived the barista life. And they start you off with POS, which is the easiest station, I will say. And POS is point of sale, which is the register, front register. So you'll go on the floor after you're done training and you finish up all your training. You and your trainer will now go on the floor, and you'll start to go through each station with your trainer, and your trainer will stand right by you and help you and guide you as you learn real time, real life, doing real things. And it's a very fun process, and it got a lot better as I developed into the company, and I became a trainer myself. The process got a lot easier. It was a lot more fun, and it became a lot more simpler. They don't teach you things that I feel like a lot of baristas should know, though, like certain lingos, certain drink orders, modifications. Those are all very, very important things I feel like you should learn before you go on the floor, because then there's a serious pricing issue that happens when you put new baristas on the floor, and then you get your Karen. You guys know who Karen is. You get your Karen who's like, I've only ever paid $2.25 for this latte. Why am I getting charged more? And so you have to end up dealing with a lot of those problems because little baby baristas don't know how to do certain modifications or when to modify and charge someone. And then, of course, it depends on what store you're at. Like, for instance, standardly, if your cream is steamed or any of your milk is steamed, it is an upcharge. But once again, this depends on the store you're at. I don't know how it is at certain stores. If you know, like, how is it at your store if you currently work at Starbucks? But for my store, if we steamed your cream and it wasn't a hot drink, we had to charge you 60 cents for that. And a lot of people did not like that. And so, it's little things like that our little baby barista will learn, do it, and then they're like, hot cream? You're charging me? What? It's because it's the effort. You're charging you for the effort of steaming your cream. Time is money, my friends. I started off as a barista. I went up to a barista trainer, which was the most magical feeling I've ever had. I love learning, and I love sharing my knowledge with people. I love training people. I love developing people. I just love it. And so that was a perfect role for me because I could really, help someone and it's nice too because one, you get to revisit everything. So you're really constantly reminding yourself of the rules and the certain modifications, the way things are supposed to be done. But it also really allows you to help a person through a very hard time. Beginning is very stressful. There's a lot of different things that you need to know, and it's very overwhelming. Drinks are overwhelming, how many pumps for each cup, just so many things. And so it's nice to be able to really be that supportive person for that new person, because it will make a difference. It makes a big difference between people who end up staying and people who don't and who leave, because ultimately they were not set up for success. And so you being that person that makes that difference is just very rewarding. So I really, really loved being a trainer. However, in order to move up, I had to give away my little trainer hat. So I went ahead and became a chef. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to train people anymore. By the way, for those of you who are interested, I don't know how they do it now, but when I started, trainers wouldn't get an extra pay, but they would get $75 bonus for every person they trained. I finally got my opportunity to become a chef, and I became a chef at a cafe, which was super wonderful for me because cafes are awesome. And unfortunately, they don't make them, or they said they weren't going to make them anymore. But cafes are awesome because it really allows you to have that connection that Starbucks is all about, and that coffee and talking and just really, really, connecting. It's a slow pace, just kind of like chill environment. And it really allows you to just do fun stuff. And at my cafe, we had a lot of fun. I feel like we definitely could have done a lot more stuff. But anyways, so this is where the story gets real deep. I tried to move up to an ASM position and assistant store manager. I got you. there is a certain program that you go through with Starbucks. There are a bunch of, development programs, and you work on development, you work on what you want to work on, and you're supposed to team up with your store manager. Now, when I first started as a shift at my cafe, I had a wonderful store manager who was just so on top of her game. She held everyone accountable. She was just on top. She was on her game, just great, on point. And then she left for bigger and better things. Still in Starbucks, but bigger and better things. And we ended up getting a male manager. And at first, I was fit to be tied. No one could convince me that this was a good change, because I just loved her so much, and she had given me an opportunity to be a manager, and that was just so, like, me. I was very emotional to her, because she gave me a chance that, most people just overlooked me for. And so I was just forever indebted to her. And I just wanted to make her proud. And so it was very upsetting to me when she left. And then I ended up getting this male manager. And towards this time, I really, really started to really think that I could move up more. And I was like, let me, because I've struggled with, self-esteem issues. I have anxiety, and that makes living my life and thinking that I can accomplish anything just impossible. It takes a lot of effort to really convince myself that I can freaking do anything. And it's just a lot of courage that you use throughout the day. And finally, I just started getting to that point where I was like, I can move up. I think I can do this. And I just slowly started to work on my development. I made it very known that I really wanted to move up and that this was my goal. However, he just didn't really seem interested in helping me. And even after I opened up my availability, I told him I wanted to work mornings. I was working mids. I was all over the place. And he still just wasn't giving me the attention that I needed. He wasn't working on me with anything. I was barely working with him. And so it was very, very frustrating, because I was at the point where I was like, what more can I do to, make this right, or to get this rolling? I had ended up even doing more by going out to help different stores. I was taking up extra shifts, and even when I was working in the morning, he wasn't letting me open the store. He was having me come mid-morning, which was almost insulting, because I had prior experience opening up coffee shops. I'd worked for Dunkin' Donuts for 6 years, and I had opened up Starbucks stores before with a manager, but I had still opened up stores, so I knew how to do it. So it was kind of almost insulting, what's going on here, And so I didn't know what else to do at this point. And I wanted to get there at that point. And then we went through a period where we ended up switching district managers. And that was stressful too, because it's every single new person that comes, you have to go, hi, my name is blah, blah, blah. Tell them about all your hopes and dreams, and just hope that they're going to freaking help you get there. And then you have to impress them. So that takes about 6 months, depending on when they're there, if they're there. And most district managers only ever visit in the morning time, so then you have to be in there in the morning time, mid-morning, or if not, then, tough luck. So it was very stressful, because every time I saw my district manager, I swear to God, just nothing would ever go right. Or I'd have not my best people, on staff. And it was a major setback, even though they'd be like, no, it's not a major setback. Yeah, it is. And that was stressful. And then when I had my initial sit down with my district manager, it was very complicating. So the way that Starbucks wants you to coach people, it's interesting. So they do this thing where it comes off very contradicting, because they want you to coach people based on their personalities, get to know your person. That way you can coach them, that works for them. But then if you do that, it's wrong, because they want you to coach them in the phrase of a question. I'll give you an example. So for instance, if I'm walking up to someone who I'm very familiar with, instead of me going, and I see them not doing the proper procedures, let's say steaming steaming milk. And I know this person very well. Instead of me going up to them and going, hey, you forgot to do this before that, or hey, did you forgot to, did you forget to do your steaming routine already? Just very familiar, very, jokey, but kind of like showing them, hey, I'm watching ya. It was wrong. I was supposed to come up to the person and go, so what is your milk steaming procedure? And for me, that just seemed really contradicting because, like I said before, you want me to mold my coaching based on my person, based on the person that I'm coaching, but then you also want me to do it your way. So it was very contradicting how they wanted me to work things out. I just didn't really know. Like, I was like, oh, okay, I'm not really sure what to do about this. And then it also got to a point where, so I decided, that was my initial problem. I was like, okay, I'm all right. But then with my boss, I also saw that there was a lot of favoritism going on. He was favoriting another chef over me. And it was a very, very obvious thing. But, if you say those things, you are being negative or you are assuming. And, with Starbucks, they have this whole thing where you need to assume positive intent, even though you're literally watching something and you literally know that it's favoritism or it's wrong. I was supposed to sit there and go, I'm going to assume positive intent and just be stupid and blind to what's literally in front of my face. So it's those issues that I'm just like, And I had voiced my opinion several times. And I tried to voice it in a way that I was like, I was respectful. And I had said those things. And I also want to point out that the particular person who was in that position that was being favorited was also not doing as much work as I was doing. I was running around to different stores. I was doing this. I was doing that. And that was another issue that I had. And I just didn't know what else to do at that point. Like, what else could I have literally done? I can't stop someone from being a favorite, that's the manager's problem, not mine. There's just really nothing I can do. I decided it was time to transfer. And he really couldn't help me even make that decision either. Just kept telling me do whatever. He was very wish-washy about the decision. And even when I came up to him, because I came up to him and approached him and said, I need help. I need you to let me know what I'm doing wrong, and I need you to really invest in me. And he had just said, I really don't know where you're at. And that's it. Never really took any sort of ownership. So I was like, oh, okay. And I decided to go ahead and transfer because I thought somehow this would make me look better. This ended up being the worst decision I think I've ever made in my career. So I transferred from my beautiful, quiet, friendly, comfy cafe to a higher volume store. Been there, done that, okay? I had worked at a super busy store. So I was like, okay, this is back to my normal speed. I went from fast to slow to fast again. And I was like, I could do this. I do want to say, and keep in mind, because it will come back relevant later, that I have worked fast food most of my life. Remember that. It was on the corner of just a busy intersection. So it just did very well. There was a school right next to it. It was just an open store too, and it was right next to a hospital. So it was just popping. There was a lot of talking of how to approach this store. A lot of people told me, don't say anything. Don't correct anyone. Just sit there for like a month and just observe and do nothing. Don't coach. Don't try to change anything. Just don't try to do anything. And I was like, okay. And then initially I had sat down with the manager, told him what I wanted, told him where I was trying to go. He said, okay, made a lot of promises to me. And that was it. This store was filled with a lot of young people. I almost said kids. Young children, young teenagers. There we go. Young teenagers, college kids. A lot of them who felt like they were doing everything muy fenigo, muy bueno. And it was a very, very rough situation. So I met 3 really amazing people, though. 3 amazing supervisors who were really, really cool, nice, very supportive. And I had some good partners. There were some good partners. But then there were some really bad partners. This manager was all over the place. He had this store for a pretty good amount of time to actually make a sort of significant difference. He didn't, however. The store was in total chaos. He really wasn't on top of his partners. He was not holding anyone accountable. He was just unable to really keep himself really on a good schedule. And he just kind of threw pissy fits on the floor. He would be petty and angry and mean out of nowhere, lose his temper, yell at people. It was crazy. It was really crazy. I flashed back to when I worked at Wendy's for 6 months. I was like, what? So it was very, very stressful. And I was like, oh my God, I made a really bad decision and I don't know if I can recover. And it just got progressively worse. And I want to say that I was there for about a month. I lasted a month. And I lasted a month only because I got physically sick working at that store. I was just done. I was crying every night. I was crying before I went to work, or I was having like panic attacks, or just like worry attacks, or just like total dread. And I was fighting with everyone every single day. I was combative with someone because some girl was telling me how she'd never been told that before, and so who did you make up that rule? Like, it was the worst. And there was no structure. And I had, spoken to the manager about it. He did nothing. And it was just a continuous pattern. And Starbucks has had a continuous pattern of hiring people who, have degrees or they have some experience doing something, and they automatically give them a responsibility like store manager. And they're just not fit for the role. They're just not. This man had 27 years of restaurant experience, and he couldn't hack it. But he sat there like a G and acted like he was on top of himself. When I gave my keys that final day, he just sat there like the Godfather and just kind of like made it seem like I was making the worst decision ever. Couldn't understand why I was doing it. Kind of gave me this whole, well, it's a shame that you're never going to be able to use Starbucks as a reference. And just tried to make me feel like complete shit when he did nothing to help me for a whole month. And I don't need more than a month to decide whether or not someone has their ish together. You just don't. You already see the bad signs. You can't tell me that you need 6 months to see it. No, I'm sorry. I refuse. But, straying away. Sorry. So I had done my best, right? I tried to say nothing. I tried. But then I just kept seeing little things here and there, people doing little things here and there, people talking to people a certain way. I was like, oh no, I can't do this. So I got involved and I started saying, I'm sorry, that's not really appropriate. You shouldn't really be talking to your coworkers like that. And they just like almost like, and it was combative. I fought with everyone every day. No, we're not really supposed to do that. Well, no one's ever told me before. Like, it was just a constant battle with little kids. It seemed like it was little kids, like teenagers, just telling me, I know better. I've been here for 3 years. No one's ever, blah, blah, blah. I bought, like, oh my God. It was just the worst. There was no sort of structure, no sort of discipline. Like, it was just horrible. But the most horrible was that I was verbally attacked and abused by a partner who was not even on the same level as me, by the way. She wasn't a shift. She was just a partner. And barista, sorry. And she was very, very upset with the fact that I was, breathing and there. And finally, I had approached her about it because I was just very, very obvious. And she was completely just the worst. She basically said that she didn't think I belonged there. She didn't think that I knew what the store needed. She didn't think that I deserved my position. She didn't think that I acted like I was better than everybody else. Like, it was just, and I laugh now because, wow, like how sad and small you are as a person to try and degrade someone like that, not knowing me at all. And then I tried. I took the biggest, highest road that a person could take. And I told her, maybe if you know more about me, maybe you'll feel a little bit better about me. And I attempted to share who I was. And this little individual looked at me and literally went, wow. I would have never guessed. Wow. Because I had told her that I worked at a high volume store before, actually a store that did more than that current store. And she was just shocked and just openly showed how disrespectful she was. And I told her, I understand that you don't like me, but it's not okay to talk to me the way you're talking to me. And she totally thought that it was warranted. Like, it was just deserved based on the fact that I was coaching her too much, or I was coaching everybody else. She just couldn't handle it. And she was just a very disgusting individual about it. And no matter how nice I spoke, she got nastier. And there was nothing else I could say, because I got to a point where I was like, I'm gonna punch her. Like, I'm gonna hit her. I'm gonna lose my job. I'm gonna hit her. And yeah, so I just took a step back. I had a second conversation with her with another supervisor sitting there. She continued to attack me. The other supervisor was just like, and it was just crazy. And at the time, my store manager was on vacation, so there really wasn't anything that could be done other than let's put a pause, let's back up, and let's just kind of leave this alone until he comes back. So he came back, and I had addressed it with him immediately, and he said, oh, I'll discuss it with her because that's not going to be tolerated. Never did. And she actually came up to me and said, well, he said he wanted to talk to me, but I'm just letting you know right now that's not going to happen. And I guess we know who actually runs the store, because he never had that conversation with her. He just kept letting it go. And I just wasn't going to stand for it anymore, because that was a severe issue that needed to be handled immediately. I was being verbally attacked. Really didn't like me. And no one should have to feel that way coming to work. No one should ever be disrespected that way. And the way that she was talking to me was definitely not okay. And should have gotten her fired, to be honest, because it was bad. Just bad. And he just didn't handle it at all. Not well, at all. Just told me he would and never did. And I just continuously got sick because I couldn't stand being around her, because I knew she didn't like me. I was uncomfortable around her. And I felt that aggression. I felt that anger and that, just resentment. And I just couldn't handle it. And I couldn't. It was not right for me to feel sick coming to work. It was just not okay. And so finally I came up to him, and I couldn't even give him my 2 weeks. I just literally gave him the key, and I told him, I can't do this anymore. And he just, like I said, he just sat there all, high and mighty, and said, this is kind of surprising. I mean, you've only been here for a month, and I took you thinking that, you were really going to be, he just made me feel bad about doing what I was doing, even though I explained clearly, black and white, why I was leaving. He didn't apologize for anything. He didn't own up to anything. He just tried to make me feel like total trash while I was giving it to him. Even though I physically told this man that I was physically sick, I could not come into work. I was missing days left and right because I just couldn't get out of bed. My body was just done. And he just kept saying, well, I mean, it's a shame. I guess I'll just have to deal with it like I always do. And I hope you never have to go through what I have to go through. And it's a shame you can't use Starbucks as a reference. That's a shame. And just extremely petty and bitter and just rude. And once again, not taking ownership. And once again, this was after I had tried really hard to move up. I told him I was trying to move up. I was overlooked for a position for ASM because I was trying to move up to an ASM. I ended up not getting picked. The person who was favorited ended up getting chosen for an interview. And when I called the district manager, I asked her just for an interview. And she told me no, because she didn't feel like I was ready. And I said, I know you don't feel like I'm ready, but I feel like I at least deserved an interview, and it would have helped me to get ready, to prepare me. And she couldn't give me an interview. And it's just not okay. Like, whether you felt I deserved the position or not, I worked hard and I deserved something. And to just be able to respect that person and give them just something to encourage them, to support them. She had said she decided not to give me an interview because the first time she sat with me, she just didn't think that I was ready and we needed to revisit some things. And I said, yes, I understand that, but that was almost 3 months ago. I could have made a dramatic change by then. Nope, she didn't think so. And essentially, like I said, I knew she wasn't going to pick me. I just wanted an interview so that I could be ready, prepare myself, kind of know what I was doing. And for you to just tell me that, it makes me feel like you don't have time for me. And I'm sorry, but I worked really hard for this. And to just not be seen, not be noticed, for the thing that happened when I was being verbally attacked to just go unnoticed, it was just too much. And I reached out even to partner resources, and the most they could do was open an investigation. But at the end of the day, nothing got done. And I decided it was time to leave because Starbucks just wasn't the magical place that I thought it would be. It just didn't pan out right. And it was a shame because it really was one of the best jobs I ever had. I loved it. I loved everything about it. But the politics, the favoritism, the contradictions, it's just too much involved with those things. And at the end of the day, it should be about someone who works their butt off, is amazing with customers, really loves what they do, that passion, that's what it should be about. Not how many people you know, how many people know of you. Just how little things like that. Those are things that don't really matter at the end of the day. They just don't. It was a shame. But I did leave Starbucks. And I ended up getting an opportunity to be an ASM. And he hired me just based on my interview. And he saw something in me, gave me an opportunity. And currently, that is where I am now. So, I guess, if you take anything away from this, know your worth. If you know that you're a hard worker, you know that you've done your time, you've done everything right. You've done the papers, you've just tried, and you just don't feel like you're getting enough. You've been vocal, you don't feel like you're getting the support you deserve, you don't feel like you're getting enough time talking. You gotta do something. Don't waste your life, don't waste all these years working for a company that does nothing for you, that doesn't offer you anything. And you gotta know when to just put a hold on it and decide that maybe this isn't my right path. And that's just how I felt. I wanted to stay with Starbucks. I could have stayed with Starbucks, but things just kept pushing me. And I just got to a point where I was like, it's not meant to be. And that's okay. Because there's so many opportunities out there. Starbucks is not the only multi-billion-dollar company you can work for. And you just gotta know when to let it go. Literally. In the words of Elsa, let it go. Because there's always something great waiting for you. You just have to be smart about it, and look and see what your opportunities are. And thankfully, the person gave me an opportunity to be something more. And it's a wonderful feeling, because the longer I stood there and the longer I worked so hard and just kept seeing nothing, it started to degrade me as a person. And I started to think, maybe I really am not meant for this. Maybe I'm not good. I'm not good enough. I'm just not good enough. This isn't working. I'm just not good enough. And it's not a feeling that anybody should ever feel. You know, there's a difference in saying it's okay. You're just not good. You're not ready. You're not ready now, but we'll get you there. Versus, I don't think you're ready, but we're not gonna really help you. You know, you're just gonna have to figure it out. And so that's the end of my story. If you'd like to share any of your stories down below, please let me know. Go ahead and write them down in the comments, or I'll leave my email for you in my description. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, for listening to me rant, and I will see you on the next one. See ya.